Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Rita was watching the news in an improvised cinema in the colony. It was difficult to call this room a cinema. It was more like an old library, strangely still stocked with decent books. Are you here for use and possession? Yes, why? Well, I am too, a pale girl with dull hair winked at her. I'm Leticia. Rita, the girl replied quietly. Why do you look a bit down? What? That means kinda sad. If the news bothers you that much, just don't watch. We have some suspicions about these news here. I'm sad because I'm innocent. That's an old one. Everyone here claims to be innocent, Leticia smiled, revealing strong, pearly white teeth that didn't quite fit her overall appearance. But I really am innocent. I was framed. Whether you believe it or not, Rita said, stroking her short, white hair. Oh, really? Yes, really. Well, then I feel sorry for real. I'm actually guilty. I wanted money. I wanted to live like a human, not like everyone here. I wanted happiness, but it turned out it's not in money. I should have lived modestly but like a human, and now... She waved her hand and slapped herself on the knee. The girl with the red ponytail sitting in front of her clicked her tongue disapprovingly and pointed her finger. What's wrong, Violetta? Leticia asked, frowning good-naturedly. Ignoring Leticia and focusing on the TV, the ponytailed girl kept looking at the news. Thus destroyed both others and myself, she continued in a whisper. Do you understand? Rita remained silent. She wasn't sure whether she wanted to talk to anyone at the moment or not. She didn't want to get close to criminals. She herself was innocent against them. She avoided them as if she feared getting dirty, and that made her feel guilty. There were people here too, and perhaps some of them were also mistakenly brought here. Are you really not guilty of anything? Maybe you should apply for a review? Already. Rita bit her lip. She felt like she was about to cry on the knees of a stranger. How much she wanted to cry. But she knew that prison was not a place for sentimentality. Just show weakness once, and you'll be remembered, and only God knows what comes next. Here, you need to be alert, so she needed if not friends, then at least supporters, and Leticia was the only one so far who had dared to speak to the newbie. The rest either ignored her or pretended as if they didn't see her at all. So, what's the deal with the news? Rita asked, tilting her head so Violetta couldn't hear them. She thinks, Leticia began, nodding cautiously towards Violetta, they've set up special television for us here. What do you mean? Rita didn't understand. There's regular TV, where they broadcast the news, and there's our special one for inmates. She thinks she made an indefinite gesture, pointing somewhere up, feed us fake news, scare us on purpose, so we wouldn't want to break free, as if it's worse out there. Sit quietly and don't stick your nose out, or maybe something worse might happen. Leticia leaned in close to Rita and whispered loudly in her ear. She thinks they might even be conducting some experiments on us. Leticia looked at Rita, waiting for a reaction. Rita sat there, furrowing her brow in thought. Rita sighed heavily, wondering if she should believe everything they were saying here and whether she was sitting next to a madwoman. But after some consideration, realizing she had no one else to talk to, Rita chose the lesser of two evils. What kind of experiments? She asked. Have you heard of NLP? Neuro-linguistic programming? Yes, the 25th frame and all that. Do you even believe in it? Some people laugh or just dismiss it, but I take it seriously. I take it seriously too. NLP exists, it's a scientifically proven fact. That's good to hear. You know, Rita, there's a nice hall here where they used to show movies. It's under renovation, but they'll reopen it soon. Then we'll have some fun. Leticia chuckled hoarsely and coughed. All right, enough of that, you too. Violetta with red hair flicked her tail and stared at Leticia. You've made me miss all the news. What are you chattering about? You've created chaos here. It's all good, Leticia waved her hand, smiling at her cellmate. You yourself said there's no truth in the news. Anyway, I think they pay us there. Let's go. Leticia intentionally shifted the conversation to a different topic. It was clear that she didn't want to get into an unnecessary argument with Violetta. Stay away from her, understand? Violetta gave Rita a meaningful look. Why? Because she's a tube. What? She probably has tuberculosis, and it's contagious, Violetta explained. And our bunks are still close by. Don't they check for that here? It depends. They won't check until the person starts coughing up blood or has a seizure. And who needs us here, anyway? Violetta shrugged and, nodding at the buxom dark-haired woman behind her, walked out of the library. Rita left the library too. She couldn't figure out why and for whom in prison they would use NLP, but that wasn't her primary concern right now. She was more worried about what Ernesto was up to. What else would her husband come up with to spite her? She suspected that he would do everything in his power to ruin her life. Ernesto had worked in the police force for 8 years in the Department of Economic Crimes. He rarely dealt with cases related to the distribution of illegal substances, but on the day they planted that unfortunate package on Rita and her lover, somehow it ended up with Ernesto. If only she knew where it came from. Why be surprised? It's your cop. Of course, he has access to all of this. Oh, Rita, throwing a wife under the bus to get her an ankle bracelet, you need a solid reason for that. I wouldn't be surprised if he is sweeping with both barrels, Leticia sympathetically nodded as they sat together in the cafeteria. Rita decided to share her story with Leticia. There was nothing to hide, and no shame in it. Well, except for the fact that, as Leticia put it bluntly, she ended up here like a chicken in the soup. He doesn't sweep. You may not know. How can you hide something like that? You can hide it for a while, and then it's too late to change. What do you mean? I mean that you won't be able to quit. It's all about addiction. The human body is a strange thing. When it comes to something good, you'll force yourself to use it, but you won't get used to it. But when it's something nasty, one accidental try is enough. Are you serious? Trust my experience. There are substances to which the body gets addicted immediately and forever. Which ones? Not here, she whispered. I'll tell you some other time when we're out for a walk, if you're interested. I don't want them to think I'm giving you instructions here. For the first time since she arrived, Rita laughed. Suddenly, she started to think about Ernesto again, and he wouldn't leave her thoughts today. Your Ernesto has always been stubborn, her mother would say. Women like stubborn men and all sorts of scoundrels. That's what you fell for, my silly girl. You thought, a strong guy, a macho, a brute. Her mother waved her hands dramatically, and Rita found it funny, and she would have laughed if it weren't so sad. Oh, come on, Mom. Dad was stubborn too. That didn't stop you from marrying him. I'm completely different. Don't even compare. Why not? Because your father didn't pretend to be a brute in the kitchen. He put on an apron and peeled potatoes. He was a brute at work or when he defended his rights, not at home with his wife or children. A real brute knows where to apply his brutality. What if he doesn't know when to be brutal and when not to be? Then he's not a brute, but a hillbilly. So what should I do now, Mom? What to do, what to do? You should have looked who you were marrying. But now what? What? Now there are two options, move forward or backward. What do you mean by backward? Rita didn't understand. It means either continue to live, adapt, comply, and please, or get a divorce. Rita covered her face with her hands. She didn't want a divorce. She wanted to fix everything, save her family. But how, if Ernesto opposed her at every turn? When I was making soup this morning, Ernesto said I couldn't cook because I forgot to add pepper. Wasn't he like that before? No. Then either he was pretending, in a trial period, or he's just in cherchez la femme. Do you think he has a lover? It's possible. Would you like coffee with cream or just black? With cream, no sugar. Mom, how can I know if he has someone else? Her mom bit her lip. It was clear she regretted her words. She didn't want to voice her suspicions because if she did, Rita would have nothing to hold on to. She fell silent, opening the oven, from which a rush of hot air with the smell of baked apple strudel escaped. The apple pie is ready, she said calmly. It smells delicious, Rita smiled. She didn't want to dwell on the conversation about Ernesto anymore, but thoughts of him treacherously scratched at her heart with cat's claws. Of course. These are our own apples from our garden. Rita, I ask you for one thing, no matter how it turns out, don't do anything foolish, don't darken your heart. Mom, what are you talking about now? She took a sip of her coffee, slightly wincing as it was too hot. A few seconds later, a pleasant warmth spread throughout her body. She felt this way only in her mother's home. They say home is where Mom is, she suddenly thought. I'm talking about not seeking revenge on anyone, no matter what happens. In difficult situations, God is the best helper. You should go to church for answers, understood? Understood. And in general, focus on something productive. Why do you keep taking photos all the time? Look at Erna Velasquez's daughter. She got a job as the head accountant at a hotel. Do you know how much she earns? Rita sighed heavily. Her curls fell onto her forehead as she grabbed her head and cried bitterly. Come on now, my dear, that's enough. What's wrong with you? We'll get through this. Stop it, okay? How little you know me, Mom, Rita thought. Even you, the person closest to me, don't understand why I'm crying, why I'm in so much pain. I'm not in pain because Ernesto might have found someone else, but because you still don't believe in me. And if even you don't believe in me, who will? A couple of minutes later, Rita wiped away her tears. She knew she could handle everything on her own. Right now, she needed one thing: unconditional love from anyone, even if only for a moment. Her mother loved her, of course, but Rita felt like she had to constantly earn that love. It was like a short sprint race. If she didn't make it on time, she lost. Rita, you're a chronic lateness, once joked her history teacher at school, tired of scolding Rita for her constant tardiness. Rules also annoyed Rita and prevented her from concentrating. Rita was a responsible person. She tried very hard to meet deadlines and adhere to rules, but it never worked for her. She could abandon a flash drive with old unprocessed photos and start working on new ones. However, she couldn't explain to herself why she didn't want to work on those specific photos. Oh, this golden boy, Rita muttered, calming down. What are you talking about? Her mother didn't understand. It's just a saying about the son of Mom's friend who is always used as an example to her own son. But in our case, it's the daughter of Mom's friend. Oh, that. Well, I just want the best for you. Mom, I'm a creative person, a humanitarian. What do I need accounting for? Do you remember how bad I was at math in school? I barely got passing grades. That's not what I meant, Riri. Then what did you mean? I meant that you need to learn how to earn money finally. Photography is not a profession, it's a hobby. And, by the way, was it worth going to a college that doesn't provide job placement? Mom, why are you saying such things? I can't imagine my life without photography. I just bought a new camera for myself. I wanted to show it to you, but if you're not interested. Of course, I'm interested. And I do earn money. I got paid for the exhibition just last week. Riri, I'm very happy for you, but you need a job with a stable income. You can't live on occasional earnings. Let's say you and Ernesto break up. How will you survive? You have to understand, I'm concerned about your future. You know me, Mom. I'd rather starve to death than do something I don't love. Look at your own life. Do you enjoy being a cook? Her mother shrugged, smoothing her gray hair, which was gathered in a bun at the back of her head. I do, Rita. I can't complain about my life. It's not like I'm living hand to mouth. I've always had money because my salary remained untouched for months. What do people spend their money on these days? Food and essentials. I hardly bought anything. Remember, I used to go to our restaurant even for bread when you were a child. Well, you do what you love, but I don't enjoy cooking, and I don't like dealing with numbers either. I love photography, Rita said, spreading her hands. Then photograph school kids, go to daycare centers, photograph weddings. I heard they pay well for that. I've had enough of weddings. There's no creativity in schools, no imagination, nothing to insert, you know what I mean. Portrait photography is dull, Mom. That's exactly what I'm talking about, my dear. Everything that brings in money bores you. But how are you going to live? Rita nodded sadly. With Ernesto, she never denied herself anything, but she understood that it was only temporary. She knew that a police officer's salary couldn't provide them with a carefree life. She wasn't aware of where Ernesto's money came from, but she had her suspicions. Ernesto himself said he had a business distributing alcoholic products, but Rita suspected he was involved in something much more dangerous and illegal. Now, from the perspective of the correctional colony, she realized that Ernesto was actually involved in the distribution of entirely different prohibited substances. Rita had asked several times for her case to be reviewed, but she received no answers, or perhaps the answers simply didn't reach her. Why are you sulking? Signing to see, Leticia said sympathetically, as sympathetic as a person who had spent 7 years in prison could be. What makes you think that? Rita asked, discreetly wiping away a tear. Well, I don't know about others, but I can see it, she switched to a whisper. They don't like such things here. I know. But you won't gain any favors by being mistreated here, understand? Everything is about perception. You need to realize that and calm down. Do you want some tea? Rita nodded, smiling. The tea was strong, bitter, surprisingly tasty, and fragrant. They drank it from metal mugs and looked at each other. Look at that, our little Tweedledum and Tweedledee are sitting on the bed, having tea, the buxom brunette said, nudging Violetta with her elbow. Violetta got up from her bunk, approached the cabinet with mugs, and kicked both mugs onto the floor with her foot. The tea spilled, and the mugs rolled under the bed. Rita managed to jump up in time to prevent her tea from spilling out, or else she would have been burned. Leticia screamed in pain. Half of the tea from her own mug had landed on her bare knee. What's this now? The skinny female guard with a stern face rushed in at the noise. Spill my REA, Leticia explained, wincing, and pointed to her burnt knee. Nothing serious. Okay, that's it, everyone out. Stop making a racket here. You're getting on my nerves with your pranks. She turned off the lights, and the cell fell silent. The next day, Leticia was taken to isolation, her cough had worsened, and her temperature had risen. Rita approached Violetta during lunch. Why are you behaving like this? Rita asked. After a moment of silence, and with Rita not leaving as expected, she reluctantly replied. I already told you, don't socialize with her. I'll decide for myself who I want to socialize with. Our cell is shared, and the rules are the same for everyone, whether you like it or not, added the buxom toothless brunette. And the local rules forbid sitting on tubs and drinking or eating with them. You could have explained that in plain language, Rita shrugged. You were told yesterday not to associate with her, Violetta stubbornly repeated. I was drinking from my own cup, and our beds are right next to each other. What can be done about that? But you were sitting on her bunk. Violetta stared at her with her green eyes, her gaze cold and indifferent. It was clear that the incident was over for her, and she was annoyed by Rita's questions. I won't sit there anymore, Rita conciliated and sat down with them at the table, making a gesture to ask for permission. Violetta nodded reluctantly, pushing away her glass of juice. But nobody knows what's with her, it might just be bronchitis. She was on drugs. What bronchitis? Violetta replied. She has HIV. I can't imagine how she ended up here at all. They have their own zone for that. She told me she never used, just sold. Everyone says that, smiled the busty brunette, flashing a toothless grin. But I was framed. The buxom brunette and Violetta exchanged glances and smiled. Husband set me up, the cop. So you're a cop? Maybe you're a snitch. Would I admit it if I were a snitch? Did your husband really set you up? The buxom brunette leaned towards Rita, studying her with surprise, as if seeing her for the first time. I swear to God, Rita replied. Unbelievable. Pigs, they're all pigs. Well, you knew who you were getting involved with. I didn't know, that's the problem. Anyway, I'm leaving. Ladies, forgive me if I did something wrong, Rita said politely, finishing her juice. The juice was gray, strange in taste, salty, not as delicious as yesterday's spilled tea, Rita thought bitterly. You too, forgive me, Violetta nodded reluctantly. I didn't mean to be harsh. I don't want us all to end up in isolation. HIV is not contagious in everyday life, although if she's in the advanced terminal stage, it's probably tuberculosis, Rita said, lost in thought, stroking her light quiff. Well, that's what I've been saying all along. A few days later, Leticia was released from the infirmary, and she returned happily. Girls, we're having a party tonight. No AIDS, no tuberculosis either. I'm as clean as a virgin before her wedding, she announced loudly from the doorway. Leticia, who doubted that? The elderly woman with a battered face called out from her bunk. Everyone here had doubts, Leticia grumbled. I would have doubted too in your place. Well, no hard feelings. Rita smiled at Leticia, who was happier than the others. She hadn't made any friends here, perhaps because she had absorbed a few simple truths. The first of them was that a person here had to have personal space, which sometimes had to be defended. No one should sit on your bed. No one should take your things without asking. No one should judge you, at least not in your presence, unless you're the scum of the earth. The last scoundrels here were considered those who shared nothing, didn't participate in the common fund, hoarded, hiding candies, and rustled wrappers secretly at night. Such people were not only disliked here, but sometimes they were subjected to severe punishment. Hitting someone for such an offense was considered quite decent, sensible, and instructive. If such a person repeated the offense, they lost respect, and nobody talked or defended them. Glad you're back. Can't have a word with anyone else, whispered Rita when she approached her. Glad myself. It was utterly nauseating there, lay in bed for a while. Had a fever for almost 2 weeks, then it got easier. Now, it's a whole different matter. So what was it, Les? Pneumonia, she waved her hand, Rita laughed. Under different circumstances, one would have been scared to death, it's lung inflammation, but not in Leticia's case. Shall we have Pruno? Leticia smiled. Why not? We have cookies in the community pot here, Leticia. Very tasty, Papa sent them, declared a crumpled old woman. For some reason, she called her husband Papa. Thanks, Leticia said on the go. Can I now sit on your bed, Rita? I don't have any linen on my bunk yet, they made me take it off. Probably burned it, like a leper's. Sit down, you can, Rita nodded. And you, Rita, you know, you look like an Irish singer. Just a spitting image, if it weren't for the blonde hair, Leticia suddenly declared. Like Dolores O'Riordan, maybe? I've been told. No, the one who sings the song about zombies. Remember, girls, Leticia turned, scanning her cellmates with her eyes. Remembered. She hit her forehead comically. Cranberries, the band, I think. That is Dolores, Rita smiled. I know, really similar. Just the same face if you were painted dark. Wish I had such looks, I'm just a colorless moth. You're just sick, Leticia, Rita cheered her up. Yeah, healthy I'm white and fluffy. That night, Rita barely closed her eyes. In the short minutes when she managed to fall asleep, she saw Ernesto. She dreamed that he came to her here in prison and asked for forgiveness. Opening her eyes, Rita suddenly realized that she was on the verge of sleep and reality when she decided to forgive him, and she became frightened. She wasn't afraid that he would come and they would meet. She was scared that she would really forgive him. And if she forgave him, she would sit in the correctional colony for another 9 years. No, this must not be allowed. Ernesto must be held accountable for his misdeeds. Evil must be punished, her mother always said, who now sent her rare letters with very dry and superficial text. They were short, unlike Rita's long, detailed ones. Did her mother still not believe her? Receiving these letters, Rita finally understood that her mother considered her hopeless and worthless. Each one hinted phrases like, "See, I told you so," or "I warned you." Rita could never prove to her mother that she was worth something. Moreover, the worst happened, something even her mother did not expect from her. She managed to end up behind bars. Winter had arrived. The days stretched on agonizingly long, but as everyone here said, you shouldn't constantly think about getting out soon, you just need to live. Although, to be honest, everyone was only thinking about how to painlessly pass the time. The experienced one said that the last months before getting out were the longest. But what did it matter to Rita if her sentence had just begun? "Are you planning to waste 10 years here, Dolores?" Violetta asked her once. This harmless nickname stuck to her ever since Leticia told everyone that Rita looked like the singer. Rita wasn't offended by the nickname, rather, she even liked this distinctive feature. "They don't reply to me," Rita bit her lip. Mother also comes out of the police empty-handed again. "Well, your cop is a real bastard, I'm amazed," Violetta shook her head. "If I had my way, I'd burn him at the stake." Oh, the line went uneven. She clicked her tongue, lifted the sewing machine's foot, and ripped the seam. "Have to resew it now." "Burn him, you say? Like Giordano Bruno?" Rita smirked. "Who's that?" "He was a scientist who spread Copernicus' teachings. He was burned at the stake for his beliefs." "You're so smart, Dolores," the woman with the crumpled face smirked. "You should be teaching history in school, not rotting here. By the way, what did you do outside?" "Photographer," Rita smiled. "A good one?" Leticia asked. "Who knows?" The women laughed, turning towards her. Each of them sat at a sewing machine. Here, they only sewed uniforms for soldiers. Rita couldn't help smiling herself. She truly didn't know if she was a good photographer. She knew one thing for sure, she was doing what she loved, and now her life was just taken away from her. "It's clearer from the side," she shrugged. "I'll ask my mother to send my works if they allow it to be passed on, of course." "Useless. Not all letters even get here, as you know." "Well, why not try?" "Go ahead and ask if you don't mind losing the photos," Leticia replied. "I don't mind. Why pity them? Might print them again in about 9 years. "Hey, stop that," Violetta interrupted. "You'll get out sooner. We'll achieve justice. And they'll lock up your cop, understand? Much sooner than you think." "That would be nice," Rita responded. She sighed heavily and started sewing the new seam. "Olivia, it's late already. How long do I have to wait for you?" "Dad, don't wait for me, just go to sleep." "I'm fine." Her voice sounded almost alien. The phone beeped. Antonio Suarez knew that Olivia was involved with a bad person, understood that she was using something, and he couldn't fathom that he couldn't influence anything. Olivia was 19 years old, and at that age, everyone has their head on their shoulders. But why not his daughter? Senor Suarez redialed Olivia's number, but there was no answer. Olivia just hung up the call. No conscience at all. Senor Suarez trudged to the kitchen, opened the fridge, took out sedative from the medicine cabinet, and dripped 40 drops for himself. A few minutes later, his heart calmed down, but sleep still wouldn't come. He kept redialing his daughter's number until she finally turned off the phone. "It's discharged," Olivia answered his silent question, arriving home in the early morning. "Of course, it's a desert out there and no one else has phones. Give me the number of this guy of yours." "Camillo," Olivia reminded him. "I don't intend to remember." "Why should I remember the name of your scoundrel?" Senor Suarez snorted. "Dad, you're starting again." "I'm starting?" "Of course, it's me who goes out who knows we're in the middle of the night and turns off the phone. I told you, it discharged. What's unclear?" "The only thing that's unclear is how you, an adult woman, allow yourself to roam around at night." "I'm not roaming." "No, you are roaming." "Dad, I'm an adult and can allow myself to do whatever I want." Olivia locked herself in her room. Her crying could be heard. Senor Suarez rushed to her, but found the door bolted from the inside. "Olivia, open up, we need to talk." "Not today, Dad, please. I'm very tired. I don't like how you've been looking lately. Are you using something? We need to see a doctor. I promise, I won't say another word to you. Let's just go to a narcologist. I'm begging you." "I'm not using anything." "You're imagining things, Dad. Always dramatizing." Olivia approached the mirror. She was so pale, her face bluish, that the snow outside seemed rosy in comparison. Now, with mascara smeared across her face, she looked even more like a ghost. She couldn't imagine how much her appearance had changed in just a few months. "Dad." "Olivia, open up." "I can't," she whispered with trembling lips. Her ears were ringing, her lips stuck together. Suddenly, her head spun, and she collapsed, awkwardly twisting her leg. "Olivia, open immediately." "Dad, Dad, help me, Daddy." "Olivia, what's wrong? What's happening with you? Please open up." Hysteria crept into his voice. "My heart, I can't breathe." "Dad." "Olivia, I'm coming, hold on." Senor Suarez unsuccessfully hit the door with his elbow twice, then ran and kicked it open. Olivia was lying on her side, foam on her lips. Senor Suarez howled and rushed to his daughter. Trembling, he pulled out his phone and called an ambulance. Then he wiped her lips with his sleeve, turned Olivia onto her back, and started CPR, but it was futile. Olivia seemed to be disconnected from some program within a minute. Senor Suarez cried and shook her, kissed her cold fingers, embraced her, begging her to wake up, but Olivia wasn't breathing. The arriving ambulance pronounced her dead from a heroin overdose. How could this happen? Senor Suarez lamented after the forensic examination. Silver strands had appeared in his black hair over the last few days. Why didn't they revive her? They do revive people. Olivia Suarez? Just a moment. Overdose, poisoning, incompatible with life. 8 doses, medics are helpless here. Nothing could have been done, don't blame us. I have no complaints against you, or anyone. I'm the only one to blame, and also the one who got her hooked on this stuff. He deserves the gallows. The doctor nodded silently, typing something into the computer. But he can be found. Who? The dealer? I understand everything, but your daughter won't come back. What good will that scoundrel do you? Let the police handle it, they'll find him. I want to find him myself and look him in the eyes. My advice to you, don't take the law into your own hands. You'll destroy yourself. If I destroy myself, then so be it. I had no one but Olivia. There's no point in living now. The young dark-haired doctor reminded Senor Suarez of his younger self. His badge read, Isaías Caballero. The same haircut, the same upturned nose, the same proud posture. The doctor felt Senor Suarez's gaze, but pretended not to notice, continuing to type on the computer and briefly answering questions. I will find him, Suarez informed the doctor for some reason. You're deliberately leaving me as a witness, Caballero smiled sadly, flashing a metal tooth. Do you even understand what a drug dealer is? Not really, admitted Senor Suarez. Think you can just reach him easily? It doesn't matter how much time and resources it takes to find him. I'm ready for anything. It's a matter of principle. Caballero nodded perplexedly, adding, You didn't tell me anything, and I didn't hear anything. Of course, Doctor. My condolences to you. I advise you to take control of yourself and think it through. I won't try to dissuade you anymore. I'm not sure I wouldn't do the same in your situation. Caballero shook Senor Suarez's hand and escorted him to the corridor. Outside the door, a distraught elderly plump woman with a pile of documents practically pounced on the doctor with her questions. Caballero winked at Senor Suarez and waved goodbye. After burying his daughter, Senor Suarez was beside himself. He couldn't sleep, eat, or work. He meticulously avoided communication with acquaintances and friends trying to console him, methodically searching for the dealer who got his daughter hooked on heroin. I must admit, I noticed some oddities in Olivia, Senor Suarez told the police officer who came to his house for a report. Sometimes she smelled strange. Not like beer, but something sweet. I thought it was some kind of liqueur, but now I think it was marijuana. I had suspicions about weed, but I didn't take it seriously. I thought, who didn't try that stuff in their youth? That was a fatal mistake. There are no half measures in these matters. You have to stop it immediately and completely. Well, what's done is done, he waved his hand and sobbed. Excuse me. Senor Suarez went to the kitchen, grabbed nitroglycerin from the table, and returned. And then, he continued, sitting down at the table and picking up the fallen police report, money started disappearing. Not large amounts, just small change. My oversight again, ownerless dollars. Those devils knew our family was well off. But I've already told all this to your colleagues. He sighed heavily. What was she lacking? The police officer said, looking around the richly furnished apartment. My Olivia had everything, said Senor Suarez bitterly. Apparently, she wanted some thrills. By the way, have you found Camilo yet? To find out who he is. Maybe he's involved. Unfortunately, not yet. Nobody knows anything. Well, if you find out anything, please let me know. Of course, Senor Suarez. You also assist us from your side. If you find out anything, we're always available. Thank you. The young man awkwardly shuffled on the threshold for a minute, as if intending to say something, and then left. A few days later, Senor Suarez, through questioning his and Olivia's acquaintances, found out Camilo's address and showed up at his apartment. Camilo appeared in shorts, slightly drunk, but quickly reacted to Senor Suarez's presence, instantly trying to close the door. However, Senor Suarez wedged his foot in, grabbed Camilo by the chest, and pushed him to the floor. So, you recognize me, brat? Camilo looked at him with a cloudy gaze and silently moved his lips, signaling to let go of his t-shirt, which was almost choking him. I know you, Camilo finally spoke when Senor Suarez loosened his grip. You're Olivia Suarez's father. Clever. What next? What will you say in your defense? I'm not guilty of anything. Original, Senor Suarez sneered, pressing his knee on Camilo's chest. Is that instead of begging for your life? Please, let me go. Hear me out first, then hit me if you want. At that moment, Senor Suarez clutched at his heart, feeling such heat in it that he released Camilo and himself collapsed on the floor, writhing in pain. What's wrong with you? Camilo asked in surprise. Are you okay, Senor Suarez? Senor Suarez nodded. He continued to breathe heavily on the floor, feeling as if his heart was about to jump out of his throat. I'll call a doctor. Camilo shouted. No need, Senor Suarez rasped. Pills. Where? In your briefcase? Senor Suarez nodded. Camilo rushed to Senor Suarez's black leather briefcase. There are no pills here. In haste, he emptied the briefcase's contents and finally found nitroglycerin. This? Here, take it quickly. 15 minutes later, they were drinking juice in Camillo's kitchen. I never used, stored, or distributed prohibited substances, Camillo answered Senor Suarez's unasked question. But you knew something. Olivia couldn't have hidden it from you. You were dating. Not for long, about 4 months. I had suspicions about Olivia, I won't lie, but she never did it in front of me. Whenever I asked, she said she was sick, getting some drips, taking some pills. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he sniffled childishly. If I had known it would end like this, I would have told you, I swear. I wasn't sure. How could I offend you with my suspicions, especially since she didn't even introduce us? I was also unsure. Will you have some pie? Strawberry, my mom baked it. Thank you, I don't know. I forgot when I last ate. Eat up. He cut a large piece and placed it on a plate in front of Senor Suarez, or you'll wear yourself out. You need to find a way to live on. Need to, but I still don't see why. Why? For Olivia. She certainly wouldn't want you to follow her. Certainly not. The pie is delicious. Tell your mom thanks. Will do. And forgive me. I was somehow sure you got Olivia into this. No need to apologize. I would have thought the same, it's the most logical assumption. Then tell me, where were you on the evening of the 18th? Olivia said she was with you. Yes, she was at my place. I remember it well. I sent her home in a taxi around 12:30 a.m. But she only got home in the morning. That's the crux of the matter. I swear, I haven't seen Olivia since 12:30. My mother can confirm it, she just came from her shift. All right. What were you doing between 11 p.m. and morning? Sleeping, shrugged Camillo. Went up to my room and straight to bed. I had to be at the university by 9 a.m. I see. Forgive me again. I'm just at a loss. Camillo nodded, staring at the floor. He found it hard to look into Olivia's father's eyes. 3 months had passed since Senor Suarez began his investigation. One day, he received a call from an unknown number. Senor Suarez, hello. This is Dr. Isaías Caballero. Remember me? You took some documents from me. We need to talk. I remember you well. You helped me a lot. Should I come to your clinic? I'm afraid that would be inconvenient. Let's meet at the Petunia Cafe in 2 hours. Remember where it is? On the right side of our clinic. 2 hours later, they were sitting in the cafe, drinking Arabian coffee. Sorry to pull you out like this, but there's a matter. Can't wait, as they say. New facts have emerged regarding your daughter's death. What are they? Dr. Caballero adjusted his tie, which seemed to have been choking him all day. We had a conference today, he explained, had to wear all this masquerade. Caballero fiddled with his tie for a while, then abruptly pulled it off his neck. So, I know who supplied heroin to your daughter. How? Allow me to keep that a secret. First, hear what I have to say, then decide what to do with this information. All right, go on, I beg you. The heroin supply in our city is overseen by a certain Ernesto Sobrado, a police lieutenant. The last batch of the product was defective. It's a long story to explain in medical terms. Simply put, pure poison. Before this was discovered, 12 more teenagers died in the city. Senor Suarez's mouth fell open, his face contorted with horror. So there were no 8 doses? No, I lied to you. 3 were brought to our clinic. The police came, threatened us, and made us write a report of overdose, which we did. At that time, I didn't know who was behind it all, but now I do. How? Don't ask, that's my concern. Why did you decide to change your mind? First, I have 2 children, and it's my duty to protect them. Second, to be able to sleep at night. Since that day, I haven't slept a single night. Third, I know Sobrado intends to continue. He's planning to set up in other cities. We must stop this. Does anyone else know about Sobrato's crimes? A few police officers he interacts with, a couple of medics, and now us. The foot soldiers selling don't know who they're dealing with. So, you didn't tell me anything, and I didn't hear anything from you, said Senor Suarez. Why? Caballero was surprised. Because you have children. You shouldn't put yourself in danger. I'll handle it myself. We've already put ourselves in danger by not reporting the crime. And besides, can one person take down such a hydra? We'll see who outsmarts who. That evening, Senor Suarez called his old classmate. Tomas, it's me, Anton Suarez. We need to meet, there's something important. What's up, Tony? Haven't heard from you in 3 years, and suddenly you're dropping in like snow on my head, Tomas chuckled. It's bad, Tomas. My daughter Olivia, she's gone. There was a pause on the line, Tomas's voice shifting from mocking to serious. How long ago? 3 weeks. I need your help. I'll do what I can, no doubt. Then I'll expect you at my place in an hour, okay? All right. 40 minutes later, Tomas arrived at Suarez's. They stood embracing for a minute before proceeding to the living room. Are you still in the force? You're asking? Where else, my dear? Once in, there's no getting out, you know. Whiskey? Yes. Got ice? Yes. They drank without clinking glasses. If you don't mind, I'll get straight to the point. Of course, Tony, I'm short on time too. I'm listening. There's this guy Ernesto Sobrato. I know him. A local lieutenant bumped into him at the station. What about him? Well, this local lieutenant, as you put it, is a drug baron. That's impossible. It is possible, Tomas, very possible. So, because of Sobrato, 13 teenagers died in our city 3 weeks ago. Overdose? What are you saying, Tomas? Think about it. An overdose for all on the same day? That doesn't happen. Then what? Counterfeit stuff. Wow. What's to be done then? Tomas leaned back in his chair, his thick brown eyebrows furrowing. That's exactly what I wanted to ask you. I could take this scumbag down myself, but won't his successor just continue the business? Don't be hasty, Tony. I understand you, but we need a different approach. Let's do this. I'll conduct my own investigation, and we'll discuss everything before acting. I won't do anything without your knowledge. Okay, let's have one more glass, then I need to go. It's my wife's anniversary tomorrow, guests and all that. I won't invite you, you're in mourning, so we'll keep in touch by phone. I'll start the investigation right today, no anniversary will stop me. It's urgent. One day won't make a difference, Tomas. Enjoy the celebration. I won't be doing anything myself, just giving instructions to a reliable guy. Trust me, if the information is correct, we'll unravel this snake's nest. We've seen worse, understand? I understand. Thank you. Nothing to thank me for yet. Still, thanks for your support. All right, I'm off, see you later. The bulky figure of Tomas Aravena, a DEA agent in the FBI, disappeared through the door. Senor Suarez couldn't say he was completely reassured, but the case was taking a turn, the investigation was moving forward, and that was a reason to be pleased. 3 days after the meeting, Aravena called Senor Suarez, proposing to meet in an hour at the lobby of the Armada Hotel. Armada was located in an old, shabby building. For some reason, Senor Suarez liked it. Passing Armada, he felt as if he was returning to his youthful past, where everything was as it should be, and everyone was poor but happy. You're expected in the restaurant, whispered the receptionist Ella conspiratorially. I'll show you the way, she added, mysteriously smiling. At the restaurant, the ambience was surprisingly exquisite and luxurious, contrasting starkly with the exterior of the hotel. The lighting was dimmed, and they were the only two present. The restaurant isn't open yet, but the hotel made an exception for you, explained Ella, her shiny black hair styled into a shell. That's nice to hear, thank you, Ella. Well then, I leave you in the hands of your friend and our attentive waiters. She smiled mysteriously again and vanished before Senor Suarez could take a closer look. A bottle of Remy Martin and 2 brandy glasses were on the table. I won't eat, Senor Suarez declared immediately. A fish plate, maybe a salad too, Aravina ordered the waiter. We have delicious desserts, like Napoleon. Bonaparte? Aravina joked. The waiter looked questioningly at Senor Suarez. Thanks, I won't eat, he repeated stubbornly. Trying to starve yourself? You need to eat, Tony, whether you want to or not. I just don't want to. Then drink. They took a sip of brandy. Listen up, my friend. We've unwittingly gotten into something very serious. Your sobrado is the right hand of Capitan La Rosa, a big fish, Aravina said, picking up a long, thin piece of trout and gracefully eating it. So what should we do now? We're knee-deep in it, right? More like neck-deep, because La Rosa is likely getting good kickbacks from this. Your Ernesto Sobrado is just a pup in this game. But he knew about the poisoned batch, unlike La Rosa, and didn't recall it. Moreover, this devil apparently put his own wife, Margarita Sobrado, behind bars by planting a packet of coke on her, while he entertains himself with a young mistress at his country house. He's on vacation, tired from such a hectic life. How long has his wife been in jail? Almost a year. She got 10 years in total, either she didn't appeal, or he's blocking it. Who knows? Why would he do that? Well, it's easier without the wife. Senor Suarez felt uneasy. An innocent person serving time? Yes, it happens, my friend. Unfortunately, it's not that rare. Pity the woman, though. Can you? Listen, I've got enough problems with your drug knot. Now you want to drag me into a legal case? No, don't even ask. You wanted to lock up Sobrado? We'll lock him up. Let the court deal with Senora Sobrado. Maybe they'll even acquit her. Listen, Aravina, you've always been the voice of conscience. What happened to you? Let's help this poor woman. She might have children. They don't have kids, I checked. Still, just imagine a young, innocent woman behind bars. That's hell. It's like if they locked up my Olivia or your wife for no reason. Ah, you devil. Give you an inch and you take an elbow. Haha, that's my friend. Deal? I'll do whatever it takes, help you out. All right. Let's help her. But first things first, Sobrado. We'll deal with Senora Sobrado later. Listen, you don't even know her. Why do you care so much about her? I care about justice. All right, we'll see what we can do. Aravina ate a piece of halibut, washing it down with brandy, and sniffed a pickled cucumber. Bring me a mushroom soup, Senor Suarez briskly ordered the waiter. That's more like it, smiled Aravina. The soups here are good. Senor Suarez gazed out the window. It was drizzling, people were walking in the distance, and for a moment he thought he saw Olivia waving at him with a white scarf. A good sign, he whispered to himself. Aravina didn't hear him. Ernesto was in the jacuzzi with Caterina Pastrana, a magazine cover model. To him, Caterina was like a fairy tale princess, full breasts, curvy hips, rounded shoulders, just as he liked. She seemed sculpted especially for him. A far cry from his slender wife, Rita. We had a jacuzzi just like this for a shoot in Los Angeles, but 3 times bigger. I was so scared to jump into it. But unlike your silly Rita, I can swim, she said, flipping back her wet hair. Why do you keep bringing her up? She's been locked up for a year already. I'm scared they might release her early. What will happen to us then, Erno? I'm really scared. Sometimes I see her in my dreams. She comes and starts strangling me like this. She wrapped her arms around her neck. Forget it, Cat, forget about her. I'll make sure she never gets out. But she only got 10 years. In 9 years, she'll be out and after us. Ernesto embraced her shoulders and pulled her closer. Water spilled over the edge. They playfully fought in the pool, laughing for a long time. When they sat in front of the huge screen, Ernesto turned on an old black and white comedy. Only grannies like your Rita watch these kinds of movies. Let's watch a melodrama. Erno, it's almost 2 years for us. And I think you forgot something. What? Remember, as a token of your boundless love, you promised to transfer all your property to me? I promised, so I'll do it. When? Maybe in the spring. But that's half a year away. Why so long? Because I first need to divorce Rita. Kat pouted and turned off the movie, curling up on the sofa. Ah, the familiar pose of a sulking kitten. I know. Ernesto approached and embraced her. Her sky blue eyes filled with tears. Kat, just hold on a bit longer. I'll divorce and transfer all my property to you, then we'll get married, okay? Understand, it's not the right time now. You always say it's not the right time, Erno. She grabbed a magazine with her picture from the coffee table and started flipping through it, absorbed. Can't get enough of yourself? I hear the sarcasm, she replied. I didn't get to read it yet. There's a lot of useful information. I need to at least read about myself. I gave an interview. There's a lot of useful information in books, Kat, so you're missing out not reading them. Maybe you can recommend something worthwhile? There's a whole cabinet left from Rita. Kat glanced at the huge cabinet in the corner of the room. Open it and read. No yellow press there, only Tsimis. What's Tsimis? You'll see. Kat wrinkled her nose, a gesture she often made when she disliked or didn't understand something. This was one of those moments. Ernesto liked it when Kat wrinkled her nose. She reminded him of a Persian kitten named Daisy that lived with his neighbor. Daisy was exceptionally fluffy and looked like a small ball of red fur from a distance. When Daisy ventured into their yard, Ernesto would catch her and scare her with a loud meow before letting her go. Daisy would get startled but returned out of curiosity the next day. Tsimis, my dear Kat, is something that stands out from the standard for the better. For example, something very beautiful or tasty, or maybe just unusual or of high quality. Like my new Porsche? It's also unusual and of high quality. Well, at least, Ernesto replied after a moment's thought. Here, take this. He pulled a stack of books from the cabinet and tossed them in front of Kat. Here's the real Tsimis, the best of what's here. Read these, and I'll give you more. Someone's knocking. Must be the neighbor. Ernesto walked to the door. Erno, I'm getting tired of this neighbor. Did Daisy wander into our territory again? Indeed, their neighbor stood on the doorstep, an elderly man with silver hair, wearing a woolen blue sweater and holding an elegant cane. He awkwardly entered the living room and greeted them. Kat didn't respond. The neighbor looked at her in surprise, asked about Daisy, and left, clearly upset by Kat's presence in Ernesto's life. Don't mind him. He was very fond of Rita. They were close, and now he's upset. He realizes you've firmly taken her place. Tell him not to come around anymore. And if his cat comes here again, you deal with it. All right, dear. Just don't get worked up over such trivialities. Let's go to bed, I'm exhausted. What a long day. Early in the morning, Ernesto and Kat heard some noise in the living room. It's that annoying kitten again. How does she even get in here? Kat grumbled, arming herself with slippers, but then she froze in shock. A few steps away stood Rita Sobrato, Ernesto's wife, and this was not a dream. Her hair was cut short, and she looked a bit emaciated, but her resemblance to Dolores O'Riordan was unmistakable. Rita looked at them in bed, smiling scornfully. You're supposed to be in prison, Ernesto started, but Rita cut him off. I was, but they released me. I'm innocent. And they know everything about you. Gloves are off, sobrato. Rita winked at him slyly. Behind her entered the police and an investigator, as well as Senor Aravina and Senor Suarez. Seeing Aravina, Ernesto's mouth fell open. "Pack your things, you're under arrest," the investigator said casually. "Do you have a warrant for my arrest?" Ernesto's voice was unusually high. "Of course, Senor Sobrato." "Hurry up, time waits for no one," Senor Aravina suddenly spoke. "We have a long conversation ahead of us." "And you," Rita suddenly addressed Kat, "get out of this house. It's still mine, for now." "It will remain yours," Anton Suarez smirked. "Your husband won't be coming back here for the next 20 years, he's going on a long vacation. That's where he belongs." Rita exhaled with relief and, smiling happily, stepped outside. She picked up Daisy, the little cat, in the yard and went to have coffee with her neighbor, complete with his signature cranberry jam.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.